I want to give you some information about the protests that have been going on in Kazakhstan recently, as well as the violent, in fact, murderous response to those protests. But a major caveat before we launch into this, as I try to always, I am not an expert on this region, on Kazakhstan specifically, or on its politics. So take everything I say with a grain of salt and be sure to do your own research. I just want to make sure that you do know about what's going on. And more importantly, my producer Sophie wants to make sure that you know about this particular story. So she did a great job of producing it. Any misinformation that I spread is all on me, not on her. So let's just bear that in mind. But the protests have been going on for some time, and we'll tell you about the impetus of the protests. What you should understand is that recently the reaction to the protests has become significantly more violent, with a number of people being injured. And in fact, it looks like dozens of people being killed by security forces. So hundreds injured, at least dozens killed. But let's go back to the beginning. Anger boiled over when the government of Kazakhstan lifted price caps for liquefied petroleum gas, frequently referred to by its initials LPG, a low carbon fuel that many Kazakhs use to power their cars. But the protests, despite being centered on that, have more deep-seated roots, including anger at social and economic disparities, aggravated by a raging pandemic, as well as the lack of real democracy. Sounds like America, actually. The average salary in Kazakhstan is the equivalent of $570 a month, according to government statistics, but many people earn far less. So there are a lot of socioeconomic and public health issues that are also adding to the tension over this increase in the price of LPG. About 1,000 people have reportedly been injured so far, with 400 being treated in hospital and 62 in intensive care. Protesters targeted the mayor's office in Almaty, which I believe is the capital of Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan's main airport, while water cannons were used against protesters in the western city of Aktabay. So that's what's been going on. The government response has been multifaceted. So on the one hand, they've used things like instituting a state of emergency, blocking social networking sites. This is a move that we've seen in a lot of more authoritarian countries, blocking chat apps, including Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, and even the Chinese app WeChat. Public protests without permits were already illegal. It was also initially conceded to a few of the demonstrators' demands, dismissing the cabinet and announcing the possible dissolution of parliament, which would result in new elections. But despite that, there has still been unrest. You can see here a statue of, I believe, the previous president being knocked down there, fires in a government building as well. And then the security forces come in and kill dozens of people. And as of right now, what are being described as Russian-led alliance troops have moved into Kazakhstan. And so they're calling them a peacekeeping force.
Oh no.
We'll see about that. Again, I am not an expert on this region or its politics or its history, but I also know how these things sort of go generally, and not looking like this is going to result in a more peaceful or gentle treatment of the protesters or necessarily giving into their demands any more readily. But all that said, Anna, what do you think?
Well, I'm noticing a trend in many countries, especially Latin American countries, that have actually moved further to the left in recent elections. And it's a response to the inequality that the people of Kazakhstan are now protesting about. It's the very same socioeconomic issue that, I think, I wish we saw a lot more political activity in our own country about. Obviously, I'm not advocating for violence or anything like that, but whenever you see these types of demonstrations happen, whether it be the Yellow Vest movement in France, whether it be the protests that went down in Colombia recently, the heart of the matter is the fact that you have politicians who continue proposing or passing regressive taxation that continues to harm the working class in these various countries. And it's both inspiring to see people rise up and demand better in the Latin American countries that I'm thinking about right now, whether it's Chile, whether it's Brazil, which is about to have an election this year. There's this movement to the left because there's this understanding that the right wing, despite whatever populist message they might try to use for campaigning purposes, has no interest in fighting for workers, has no interest in looking out for the common man. And so this could really go in a terrible direction. I'm not happy to see that Russia's getting involved in this. I don't really trust the intentions of the Russians here. But I do think that what the demonstrators are voicing here is a legitimate concern, not just in Kazakhstan, but in many countries across the globe. Yeah. What's also relevant is how the United States responds to it, how the US media responds to it, because what I'm noticing in terms of, let's say, coverage of what's happening in Latin American countries right now is this very real fear among both American politicians and journalists in regard to what leftism means for the future of American alliances, because one of the other rising powers in this world, of course, is China. And you already have the elite in the United States concerned that all these countries that are now moving to the left are going to create alliances with China as opposed to the United States. And the real question is, why would they do that? Could it be because every time, especially in Latin American countries, we have the rise of leftist leaders, the United States comes in and orchestrates a coup. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is a fascinating story, and we should definitely keep our eyes on it. But solidarity and more power to those who are speaking out against the inequality in their country.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And if you are interested in this, please, again, do your own independent research and you can find out more. It's a fast developing situation. So that's also true. And to demonstrate my previous point about me not being an expert, Sophie has advised me that Almaty is not the capital. It's one of the biggest cities. It used to be the capital. It's not the capital anymore. So apologies for that. Again, always, especially in international stories, do your own research. And thank you, Sophie, for all your work on this.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.